Over 2,000 years ago, the Roman philosopher Seneca said, "It is not the man who has too little, but the man who craves more that is poor." And yet this idea feels suspiciously modern, because today most of us don't live with too little, we live with too much and we still want more. We surround ourselves with things we think are required to live the good life, but this constant accumulation leads us to have homes that are no longer just somewhere to live, but somewhere to store all of our stuff. Our home stops being designed around our life and instead is designed around our stuff. So today I want to talk to you about how and why many of us end up creating homes around our stuff instead of homes around living, why it is that we think all this stuff will make us happier and why it's not making us happier, and hopefully share some ways to help break you out of that cycle. From a very young age, most of us learn that buying things is tied to positive emotions. If you've ever gone to the store with a child, even a small child as little as 2, they probably will want you to buy something. And this is because buying things is a dopamine-driven reward system that is active from even a very young age. When you can anticipate getting something desirable, your brain releases dopamine. In kids, their dopamine circuits activate in early childhood. So from a very young age, we learn when we see something we want, it triggers the "this will feel good" signal. Then throughout life, buying continues to be tied to positive emotions, things like celebrations or rewards. The things we buy are also used for social signaling. Children as young as preschool age are aware of what others have and what's cool to have. As humans, we have evolved in groups where status affects survival because that means better access to things like resources, mates, and protection. And since our brain has stayed almost exactly the same for centuries, it still strongly values status cues. Certain goods act as these status cues to things like wealth, taste, and competence, and belonging to a group. When we buy and own something, we're not just thinking this looks good or I like this, but also this says something about me to others, even if subconsciously. Then, not only is our brain set up to want stuff through dopamine and social signaling, but society continues to reinforce that stuff is desirable. Advertisers and marketers use brain science to sell you things. A couch isn't just a couch, it's a sign of a beautiful home. A car isn't just a car, it's a status. A purse isn't just a purse, it implies something about you. The expectation of buying something in order to own it for years no longer really exists because social media has normalized constant novelty. Trends cycle faster than ever. Think about fast fashion or micro trends. We buy outfits for every event, get new throw pillows for every season, buy supplies for every passing trending hobby. And of course, there's so little friction to buying anything now, so you never even have a chance to think, do I actually really need this? There's one-click purchasing, same-day delivery, buy now, pay later. Acquiring something new produces a short-term psychological reward, mainly dopamine and novelty, which most of us mistake for lasting satisfaction because it is quick and easy. But over time, this conditions us to keep seeking more and more to get that short-term psychological reward, and this is how it begins. We keep accumulating and filling our homes with all of the stuff we are buying to seek that feeling. Along with many of us being in a sort of trained loop of accumulating, the novelty of all of these things online is very hard to resist. The way convenience culture reframes effort as a problem, selling us products that are positioned as solutions to very minor inconveniences. It tells you that your current setup is not good, it's inefficient, even if it works just fine. I mean, take for example, this banana slicer, shaped perfectly like a banana. Never once in my life have I been cutting a banana and thought, oh my God, wow, this is very taxing. I really wish there was an easier way to cut this very soft banana. But yet this product can make me feel like maybe there's a better way to cut my bananas. The truth is, most of our stuff is just, well, stuff. It's not actually making our lives easier or better or richer. To be blunt, it's actually just a lot of junk. And worse than all of that, the stuff is taxing us emotionally, mentally, cognitively, and physically. That's because ownership isn't just a one-time purchase. It's more like a subscription. Sure, you only pay for the item once, but you continue to pay for it in your time and your energy. Every item needs to be maintained and organized and remembered and stored and inventoried. Your stuff stuff is often taking a lot more from you than it offers you in return. I have given this example in videos many times before, but I like to look at the stuff in my home as an employee. The idea is that when you hire an employee, you pay them a salary, and in turn, you hope you get an equal amount of work from them to benefit your business that exceeds the cost that you pay them in salary. Your stuff is like that. You just pay for it in time. It's estimated that people spend as much as 6 hours every month decluttering their stuff. The average person spends 2.5 days looking for misplaced items. 54% of Americans feel overwhelmed by their clutter, and 78% of them don't know how to deal with it. It's also projected that 40% of the time we spend cleaning is just spent tending to our stuff, meaning we could clean twice as fast if we owned less. And all of our stuff requires our time. And yes, some of our stuff is worth our time. The bowl you use every day to make bread, your favorite pair of jeans, your kids' most used toys, the coffee pot. But so much of our stuff isn't worth our time. Research consistently finds that a significant portion of household items go unused. Some articles saying as much as 80% of the things in our home are never used. And yet we're giving it space on our shelves and mental energy every time we have to organize or declutter the area. Emotional bandwidth when we look at the cluttered areas of our home and feel anxiety, not knowing what to do with it or when we'll deal with it or even how to deal with it. We're letting this stuff take over our homes, a place that should be meant for living. We're turning our homes into storage units for stuff, much of it stuff we're never going to use. Because we convince ourselves that all of these things hold value. They might be useful, I might need it, I could wear it, I'm going to use it someday. And so we accumulate things at a quicker rate than we can lessen. And if we have more coming in than going out, the only outcome is too much. A quick break to tell you about the sponsor for today's video, which is Ritual. I've been using Ritual multivitamins for a few years now. I took the prenatals when I was pregnant, and now I am taking the Essential for Women. It is a clinically backed, clean, high-quality multivitamin designed for women 18 to 49 to help fill in key nutrient gaps in the diet. What always stands out to me is how transparent they are. Ritual is made traceable, so they know where their key ingredients come from, why they're included, and how the product is tested, which is something that I just don't think we always see with products like this. They are USP verified, which is actually a pretty strict third-party certification, and apparently less than 1% of multivitamins have that. The capsule design is also unique. It combines both oily and dry ingredients in one capsule, so things like vitamin D and folate can be taken together. I take 2 capsules a day. They are delay released, so I don't have to worry about them upsetting my stomach, and I can take them with or without food. If you have been looking for a multivitamin that's backed by science and obsessive research, you can check out Ritual using the link in my description box down below. You can also scan the QR code that you see on the screen right now as well. So I always find that kid toys are a really great example of hidden costs of our stuff, because I think it's just so easy to justify kids' toys. They play with them, right? They keep them entertained, they love them, their grandparents bought it for them. It might buy me 10 minutes of quiet after breakfast. They might ask about it if it's gone. It's educational. They might play with it when they're older. There are endless reasons that we can hold on to our kids' toys. But the mental bandwidth of managing all of our kids' stuff is astronomical. I mentioned this earlier that about 54% of Americans feel overwhelmed by their clutter, but parents of younger kids report higher than average stress levels, some studies quoting as high as 80% of them feeling overwhelmed by clutter. It's estimated that the average American child owns between 70 and 200 toys, but only plays with 10 to 12 of them regularly. It was actually this stat that made me try a 4-toy rule last year, and I will link that video down below if you're interested in seeing the premise of it, but the idea is that you only have 4 toys per kid available at one time. And since implementing this, my kids have played better. It's drastically easier to keep up our home, to keep things tidy, and not once has one of my kids complained about it. I do usually once a month come in here and sort of like reevaluate, because toys will find their way into the space. So I thought that we could quickly check the space and remove the excess, remove those toys that have that hidden cost to them. Just gonna lay down. That's fine. This is not weird. Like, hello, welcome to my crib. Okay, first toy is magnet tiles. Now, all 4 of my children play with these Every single day. Are they spread around the playroom and sometimes other parts of my house? Every single day, yes. But one, they're fairly easy to clean up. Two, my kids can clean them up by themselves. They all fit into this one bin right here, and they play with them all the time. To me, this is worthwhile. The time that I invest in maintaining this, it gets enough use out of it. So the hidden cost here balances out, if that makes sense. I'm happy with what I am paying this employee for what I'm getting for it. Okay, next up is our little wooden barn, and then we have like 8 million animals that go with it. So many just little tiny animals that are everywhere. Do my kids play with this sometimes? They do. Sometimes they take the animals out and they do other things with the animals. They put them on the magnetiles. The truth is, I end up picking up these little animals all of the time. They end up in all sorts of different places, and I probably don't need nearly as many as I have out that like cost all this time for me to be like, they're literally everywhere. So many little animals. And they basically never actually play with it with this barn. They find other things to do with it. So for me, this one's not worth it. The barn is gonna go away. I'm gonna pick maybe 5 to 8 of these little animals to keep out for them to play with, or maybe I'll just put them away for a little while and I'll bring them back out another time. Again, the tricky thing with kids' toys is we kind of feel like we need to keep it all out all of the time. But if I only want to keep out 4 toys, like sets of toys per kid, I have to really think about which ones are worth it. I could put away these little animals and they would still find lots of things to play with. As we accumulate, even if we're good about occasional declutters, eventually we're going to run out of space to keep all the things that we believe are necessary. And this leaves many of us to believe that we just need another storage shelf, right? We need a couple more bins. We just need another closet. 1 out of 10 Americans own a storage unit just to store all the stuff that they can't fit in their homes for this very reason. The belief, I just need more space, treats clutter as a capacity issue. It assumes the problem is external, right? Not enough room, not enough storage, not enough square footage. So the solution becomes to add more, get a bigger closet, buy more bins, upgrade to a larger home. But clutter isn't a capacity issue. And so increasing space just kind of delays the consequences of our overaccumulation rather than resolve it. This behavioral pattern mirrors the Parkinson law, which states that work expands so as to fill the time available for its completion. Clutter does the same. Possessions expand to fill the space available. When you add more storage, the immediate pressure will disappear, right? That immediate relief is going to reinforce the idea that this system worked. But without addressing the issue itself, the whole thing just kind of resets, and eventually the space is going to fill back up. So the problem wasn't actually solved, it was just scaled or sort of hidden for a short period of time. Homes have gotten significantly larger over time, more than doubling in 50 years, yet clutter hasn't decreased. Many people still feel overwhelmed by their possessions. Even with expanded space, Americans now rely heavily on external storage, and some move into even bigger homes just to accommodate their belongings. Research and observational studies consistently show that additional space doesn't eliminate clutter. That space just tends to get filled up as well, because once more space exists, it justifies keeping more and getting more, and we never have to figure out how to get rid of the excess. Okay, so we are in my closet because besides being a very awkward space to film, it's also a very good example of that sort of like, I just need a little more space idea that we get with our stuff. For some reason, closets are always spaces where we feel like we don't have enough. I remember in our last house when we were selling it, our real estate agent came over. They were in our bedroom, which just had this like really tiny little closet and a dresser. And she was like, where do you put all your clothes? But here's some very interesting facts that I found about clothes. It is estimated that we only wear regularly 20% of the clothes that we own. And there's actually some estimates that say that's even less, guessing that it's closer to only 10% of the clothes that we own, we regularly wear. And so it's just a perfect example of one of those things that we will fill as much space as we have. I don't know what it is about clothes. Having less clothes might on the outside feel like deprivation. I'll never have what I need to wear. But by editing my clothes back and having less, I actually have found really the opposite to be true. Getting dressed is way easier because I have less to choose from. I repeat outfits a lot, yes, but I also spend so much less time deciding what to wear, washing and organizing and sorting all my clothes. I used to have multiple storage bins in my basement for seasonal overstock clothes, and half the time I would forget all about them when it was time for me to be able to wear them. Having less in my closet has really given me more. more freedom, more time, and more space. So I'm actually pretty intentional about the stuff in my closet. I really try to declutter it often, but I think we could probably get rid of some stuff right now. Let's see what we can do. All right, from what I thought was a very well pared back closet, I found a ton of stuff. I own this in 2 colors. This one's covered in paint and stuff. It's just, I don't really wear it that much anymore unless I'm gonna make it messy. I have this because how many long sleeve white t-shirts does somebody need? Long sleeve white shirts. I literally own the same one. And why do I don't need more than one. Look, here's another one. I don't need 3 of them. 1 is sufficient. I can get rid of those. Same for black tank tops. Why do I need a million of these? If I need it, I can just wash it. Next is this dress. It was great. I could wear it when I was pregnant. It was kind of nice postpartum, and I've just kept it because I'm like, oh, it's just an easy dress to throw on, but I don't even like it. I don't like the way that it looks on me, so why would I keep that? Next, I have this short sleeve dress. This one's been sitting around because I like it. It's comfortable, it's cute, but it's just not versatile. Like, it's short sleeve, but it's the kind of dress you would wear with like tights or leggings. It just doesn't fit my normal life and what I will usually wear. And because it's short sleeve, it's not like I can wear it through the winter. So like the time that I can actually wear it is very small, and so it's just not worth it. Next, I have this button down. I like this. I want to be somebody who wears a nice structured button down like this, a little oversized. It's sort of cute, but it's just not me. This doesn't match my style. It's not the kind of thing I wear. I literally only grab it when there's like nothing else in my closet, and so it's pointless. And then I have this sort of like flannel-y button down. I do wear this. I like to wear it open with like a white tank top, but actually I don't love it. I don't like the plaid on it. And so I'd rather get rid of this and just keep my eyes peeled for like a nicer, this was just like a cheapy one. Got it like Marshall's or something, I don't remember. I'd rather let it go and just keep my eyes peeled for when I find something else. Less is gonna be more in my closet. It's just less pieces to weed through and to wash, and pieces that I don't really love. These are like my 80% that don't get worn on an everyday basis, you know? So what's the solution? We need to start looking at our stuff differently. Surely if we're needing to spend $50 or more a month to rent storage units for our stuff, if possessions are taking over our shelves and our time, then we have too much. There's really only so much that one person needs. So we need to allow ourselves to look at having less as freedom. It's freedom from the job and responsibility of all of this stuff. Like I said, I have an idea where I look at my stuff as an employee, but there's also a really interesting idea called inventory tax. Inventory tax reframes ownership of stuff in a way that most people overlook. It says that buying something is not a one-time cost. Now, inventory tax has 2 parts because all good taxes do, right? Can't have just one kind of tax. Got to have at least 2. The first part of this tax is time. Every object requires a degree of attention, cleaning it, organizing it, moving it, maintaining it, or just mentally tracking it down, like knowing where the heck it is when you want to use it. The more you own, the more cognitive load you're going to carry. Clutter isn't just physical. It has a mental level. Most of us have heard the stats about how people who have more clutter in their home report lower happiness and higher stress. That extra stuff in our space, even if we're not consciously thinking about it, is using up our cognitive bandwidth. It occupies decision-making energy and background awareness. So it's not just the time that you spend dealing with the clutter, but it's also the time that you can't fully focus on anything else because the clutter is there. Now, the second part of inventory tax is financial, and I think this one is really a super interesting way to think about our stuff. So let's say, for example, you spend $2,000 a month on rent for a 1,000 square foot unit, which is honestly a steal these days. But it's effectively like $2 per square unit. If you have a 100 square foot room that is filled with unused items, that's costing you $200 every month. $2,400 a year for not living, but for storage of, let's be honest, just a bunch of stuff you're probably never going to use. When we consider inventory tax, we can see that keeping our clutter isn't freedom. You're not just keeping things, you're actively paying to keep them in time and in money. This is the exact same reason that financial advisors tell people not to keep credit cards, right? So you have a credit card with a $1,000 balance and a 2% monthly interest rate. You might have a minimum monthly payment of $25 for that balance. When you pay $25, only $5 of that is going to the actual balance, and $20 goes to just interest. Your stuff is taking huge chunks of interest too. It's just not as black and white as dollars. And so when we start to think of our stuff like this, we can start to understand why letting go of some of it could give us more freedom, that the salary that we are paying it isn't worth it. Now, because our clutter takes time to manage, many of us assume that clutter is simply a time problem. We just need time to manage it, or we're just lazy, and that's why we can't get on top of it. But most people living with clutter are not unwilling to act. They are just overwhelmed by the number and the complexity of the decisions that are necessary to deal with it. What looks like avoidance of the task is usually just like decision fatigue or cognitive overload. That's because at its core, clutter accumulates because each item carries a very small but real decision. If all of our clutter could just be tended to in a single sweep, I think pretty much none of us would have a clutter problem, but it's not. Every item requires a decision, such as keep it, discard it, organize it, relocate it, use it. And then many of these questions lead to more questions like organize it where, put it where, use it when. Layered on top of that are emotional factors. Many of our items are tied to guilt because it was money sent, or the possibility of future use, or the discomfort of waste. Other things carry sentimental weight, right? Representing past aspirations or relationships. They are not just purely practical black and white decisions, which make them even heavier and much easier to postpone. Now multiply that across dozens or hundreds of options, and those decisions become just too mentally taxing. Decision fatigue will set in way before you're able to make any progress, and that's how we end up with piles of stuff. For a long time, a rich life has been defined by accumulation. More space, more clothes, more options, more actual visible proof that you are doing and living well. But in practice, that version of richness actually comes with a ton of hidden costs, like having more to manage and more to maintain and more to think about. And when we're in that constant state of wanting more, we'll always want more. Thinking that the next income bracket will make you happy, or just waiting, just saying, I can't wait till I can buy XYZ, then I'll feel accomplished. But most of the time when we reach those goals, we don't. Instead, the minute we hit a goal, we just start chasing a new one. One of the most interesting graphs I have seen recently is this one. It is from a foundational study that is titled Income and Emotional Well-Being, a Conflict Resolved. It aimed to see if money made people happier, and what it ultimately discovered was that when basic needs are unmet, such as housing or food, that money does increase happiness. But once those basic needs are reliably covered, the graph flattens out. It basically means that once you have enough money to cover your basic needs, more money doesn't make us happier. So getting more and having more might look like abundance and happiness and prosperity, but it's not. And worse yet, often, it's actually leading to overwhelm and never feeling satisfied. So the alternative is you need to shift your perspective about what a rich life is. A rich life is one where you need less, not because you're deprived, but because you have shifted your needs to just be more narrow. When you rely on fewer things, you reduce the number of decisions, obligations, and distractions competing for your attention. The result is not like emptiness or, again, deprivation, but it's freedom because your time and energy are no longer spread thin across all this stuff. Now, I have been working on decluttering for years, and I've shared so much of it with you guys here, and I think I've gotten pretty good at it. But it wasn't until last year that I feel like I finally tackled the last piece of my decluttering problem, which was accumulation. And if you can't tackle accumulation, you're bound to stay in the clutter loop forever of accumulate, declutter, accumulate, declutter. What really did it is about a year ago, we did a 1,000 item declutter challenge in our house, and alongside that we did a no buy month. And the combination of doing these two things, of removing a ton of excess from our home and at the same time having a period where I was not allowed to bring anything new into my home, was sort of this final puzzle piece that I needed to see the whole picture of decluttering a lot clearer. And I feel like in a very meaningful way, the benefits of actually having less and the freedom that it gave me and the absurdity of the clutter accumulate cycle. It isn't just about getting rid of stuff, but also not accumulating it as well, because that protected my space. And I think that's how I look at so much of it now. It's protecting my space. More stuff does not make me feel better or richer. It makes me feel overwhelmed. It drains my valuable time and my cognitive resources, and often it leaves me in this sort of low-grade cortisol spike because there is always all of this extra in the back of my mind, because even clutter we can't see, subconsciously we're thinking about it. We all have that one cabinet that we never want to open, or we always avoid our attic because it stresses us out. And as I have allowed myself to live without that feeling, I'm even more protective of it than ever. Do you guys remember when Kate Moss had that controversial saying because she said nothing tastes as good as skinny feels? And we all quickly called her bluff on it because I don't know, Kate, have you ever had a Reese's peanut butter cup?
Obviously not.
But But I could take her saying and edit it for the sake of this video to say that no product feels as good as a calm home does. Every item we choose to bring home or to keep jeopardizes that. So I'm really working now on leaning into being extremely mindful of what I bring into my home and consistently edit what I do have there. In 1928, Virginia Woolf gave lectures at Cambridge about women in fiction, in which she said one of her most famous lines, which is, "A woman must have money and a room of her own if she is to write fiction." The words from these lectures later became her book, A Room of One's Own, in which she argues that for a woman to write fiction, they need two basic conditions. They need financial independence and a private space. Without these, creative work is constantly interrupted or suppressed. She implied without a calm, quiet space, the creative process would be strongly hindered. And in working to do this in my own home, I can say it's true. When your space is lighter in stuff, it frees your mind, your time, your well-being. It's so easy to look at clutter as just a physical thing, which is harmless, but clutter isn't physical, it's psychological. And a functional home requires intentional choices about what actually supports your life, not what might someday. So again, at the end of the day, it really comes down to protecting your space because of the huge benefit of having that calm, peaceful space and what it gives to us. All right, my friends, I think I've babbled on about this for long enough. As always, thank you so much for stopping by and watching. I hope you're having a fantastic day. Remember to be kind to yourself and others, and I will see you all in my next video.